I'm Chris Murphy.
And I'm Jennifer Logan.
And we're the Community Theater Heroes.
We host a weekly podcast where we interview theater companies,
actors,
casting directors,
playwrights,
composers,
and other theater artists to give our listeners helpful advice, tips, and insight for their own careers.
And life in general, because we believe that live theater has the power to make the world a better place.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 11 of the Community Theater Heroes podcast.
In this episode, we interview Andy Barrett, the artistic director and owner of the Funhouse Lounge in Portland, Oregon.
Andy offers great advice on producing original productions, like his Die Hard the Parody musical, coming back to the Funhouse Lounge this Christmas.
Hope you enjoyed this episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. Did I yell too loud? Is that what that was?
I think so.
She like kind of recoiled when I did that.
It was
It was a recoil.
alarming.
Yeah. Well, anyway, today we have Andy Barrett. Yay! Andy is the artistic director of the Funhouse Lounge in Portland, which is amazing.
I have
you've
been
never
a
been there.
huge fan of your guys' stuff. I was trying to sit here and think of the first one that I saw. But every one that I've seen has been, I think it might have been Twisted. I think Twisted might have been the first one that I saw. And then after that, it just continued, like Sordid Lives.
Right.
I've seen...
Well, we did West Side Story back in 1967. That was probably our first show.
I missed that one.
That might not even be true. Yeah, it might not be true.
I just, when this came up, I was like, oh my gosh, we have to get him in here because what you guys are doing, and for the theater companies out there who are listening, the Funhouse is a small space, but it's greatly converted, and they use the space so well. It is a bar.
It is an art-centric performance venue that happens to serve drinks.
That is exactly what it is. That's well worded.
That sounds like an elevator pitch that you've honed over the years.
Yeah. Started out as an escalator pitch. We were on a small budget. Yeah.
How did it come up? How did you guys start this?
I had done theater, mostly improvisational comedy. And I had a partner who came from more of a theater background. And he moved up here, and we decided we wanted to open a place together. And this place was the manifestation of the vision of both of our vision. What you learn in business, whether it be creative or pure business, is sometimes good friends don't make good partners. And that was our case. Yeah. So he has since gone his separate way, and I am now for the past 2.5 years, been the sole driving force.
When did you guys open this?
In January of 2011.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So not really that long, but you guys...
2012. So, yeah, just over 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm always just in awe of is, especially if you're coming at it from a community theater kind of venue, every seat is filled every single time I come in. To the shows that I've seen at the main stage shows, I know you guys have a bunch of plates spinning, but it's just whatever formula you guys have working for you. I don't know if it's your location, if it's the people that you're working with, if it's the material, like what?
It all comes together in that sense. We are fairly unique among theater companies in this town, I think. The kind of work we do, and the kind of work that people who come here do.
Can you elaborate for people who might not be familiar with Funhouses?
Well, and in addition to a lot of the other stuff we do is that we have stand-up comedy here and burlesque shows, and there's bingo on Sundays, and there's drag.
Actual bingo?
Actual bingo.
Really?
The improvisers here dress up like senior citizens and run a bingo every Sunday.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's called the Rusty Trombone Senior Center Bingo Night. And so there, and drag shows, and there's been some spoken word stuff and variety shows. So there's a lot of different things here. But the main thrust, what we're here to talk today about, is we do runs of plays and musicals, and a lot of what we do taps into people's nostalgia and stuff like that. Last year we did Die Hard the musical Parody, which was completely original reimagining of Die Hard as a musical. It had 14 original songs, and that was our Christmas show because it is a Christmas movie.
It is a Christmas
It
movie.
is.
And,
I have argued that for years.
I'll fight anyone who says otherwise.
And so that sort of thing. We've done Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the original movie, both a regular and a jukebox musical version. We brought Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog to the stage.
Yeah.
Coming up this summer, we're doing Evil Dead the musical, which is an actual popular touring musical. Coming up this fall, we're doing Back to the Future the musical parody, which is another original that I'm currently writing. So there's a lot of cool and different things we do here. The Trail to Oregon, which is a musical written by Star Kid, which is a group out of Chicago who also did Twisted that we did last summer, and a Very Potter musical is another show they did that a lot of people have heard of.
Oh yes,
So,
okay. Yeah.
So I look for stuff that not everybody else is doing. We've had people within our company say such things like, "Oh, we should do Odd Couple," and
Everyone's doing Odd Couple.
don't get me wrong, I love Odd Couple, but everybody does Odd Couple. Everybody does this show. Everybody does. Yeah, so we look for the stuff that, I guess fits into what I see as a Funhouse show.
So that kind of brings up one of our questions. What is your company's mission? Do you have a mission statement? Like, what is it that sets Funhouse apart besides doing these original works? Like, when you went into creating the business, did you have a thought like, this is what I want Funhouse to be known for?
We, when we first founded the place, wanted to do work that was edgy, quality work that was fun. Mm-hmm. So you won't see there's certain stuff you won't see us doing here just because they're well, Annie could be fun even. I mean, it's a great
Burlesque.
It has a great villain song in it.
Yeah, it does.
But you won't see really serious stuff here. Last year, Rusty with Fuse, they came here and did Sordid Lives, which is serious, but also comedic, but also touching, but also, there's so many different things it is. And I like that kind of stuff also, as opposed to just the pure comedy stuff, the pure kitschy stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
But, we won't be doing... what's something that's really heavily serious?
Heart?
Yeah. You won't
the
see.
musical.
You won't see that.
Death
Yeah.
of a Salesman.
Yeah. Exactly. I was thinking of Death and the Salesman, which is a woman who's been tortured by someone years ago, who's tortured by a salesman years ago, sees this salesman and captures him, trying to figure out if he's actually the salesman who did it. So we combine Death of the Maiden and Death of a Salesman, and I think it's a winner.
It's a solid winner.
Write it down. You heard it here first. Yeah.
Oh man!
So Andy, what is your origin story? I was reading online about you that you were part of Comedy Sports in San Diego.
Both comedy sports and theater sports.
And theater sports. Okay.
Down in San Diego. Yeah. Moved up here. It's funny. I was never a theater kid when I was in high school or college. I think. Much like many STDs, the bug bit me later in life, and that's just kind of the direction I went. It's it's more of a recent awakening for me.
Right.
First performing, not so much performing though, because I got into producing, and then directing, and then writing. Mm-hmm. So I'm involved in more of that stuff these days.
Yeah.
Which element of that is your favorite?
Probably directing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last year I directed Reservoir Dolls. Which
I really wanted to see that.
Which is a live stage version, an all-female stage version of Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs.
That's fantastic.
And that was a lot of fun. I worked with some great talent on that one.
Oh man, I did miss that one.
And then of course I directed. I wrote Die Hard as well, and I couldn't write it and write the songs and everything and not direct it because I couldn't. Because I can't let go,
Because I have control issues.
Yeah.
I just want to geek out. I approached Standing in a karaoke bar a little more inebriated than any real pitch should be. But I was like, you should be on the podcast. I love you so much.
To be fair, she approached me and asked to do Summer Nights with me from Greece.
I was
sounds
very
like
gentle.
that sounds
And
like
what
jazz.
happened was there was a woman next to me who was a stranger who I told her was my wife so she would leave me alone.
Yes. I've since found his home. So don't worry about that. Knock, knock. It's me. I'm in the bushes. We
You're
have
out of
fun.
milk.
We have fun. But really.
So,
But Die Hard was so great. I just, and I heard, just in case anyone who has not seen it, they are bringing it back again this
Correct. It's coming
December.
back. It'll be back. It'll be back Thanksgiving weekend for a 6-week run. It's going to run Thanksgiving weekend through the end of the year.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Are you releasing the music anytime?
That's the talk. We are talking about once we get into the rehearsal process this year, recording the soundtrack album.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
'Cause as a consumer, I walked out and I was like, how did I I was like, oh, this song's stuck in my head, and I just have Sean's face in my head singing it, and there's no way to scratch that itch. So,
Yeah.
poof, that would be so exciting. That's the end of the fan.
in case you were wondering, like Jen has a lot of like hand movements when she does the podcast.
Yes,
So,
you
like,
give her. I noticed you give her a lot of room and put the mic
I
far,
do,
far
yeah,
away
I
from
do.
her. Yeah.
Yeah, so right then it was
For
it was
your
pretty
safety,
stressful.
not mine.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait.
So, I mean, man, you're wearing a lot of hats, and you said directing is your favorite. What goes into creating a show from concept to finish for those that are listening that have no idea?
I mean, if you're talking about a musical, from concept to finish, you've got to, whether you're adapting an existing work or starting out on your own, you've got the initial writing process, which is writing the story, which is mapping out your outline, arranging your scenes and stuff like that, figuring out what your through line is in that particular story. Is it about love? Is it about redemption? Is it about alienation? What is it about? You have to figure out what it's about first. Whatever it is, like when I adapted Die Hard, I decided it was about redemption. For whatever reason, that just felt right. So by the end, everyone, even the bad guys, everybody gets redemption. And so you've got to figure that out first. You've got to write the actual story. Once you write it out and then break it down into scenes for the stage, then you got to look at where your songs are. And there are certain rules to where songs go. You want to have your opening number. You got to have your closing number. You got to have your big number at the end of Act 1. And then typically you want to have your I Want song, your villain song, your comic relief song where the story might be more story than anything. Yeah. And there are all these and you kind of juggle and balance all those and feel where it's right. And then with me, then you've got to, the way our process generally works, myself and my musical director, Matt Inslee, I generally write all the words to the songs first, which isn't how a lot of duos, the music is written first. But it just has to do with whoever the particular duo is. I prefer writing the lyrics first. So I write them all, and then we put it to music, and I'll alter the lyrics as needed.
So how do you do that? Do you have a tune in your head, or you're just writing?
Yeah,
sometimes like a poem?
Sometimes I work from a tune in my head, and it'll just be a da 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 dum bum bum da 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 da. I'll just kind of yeah. Or sometimes I'll base it on an existing song, like there is a song in Die Hard. To clean it up for radio, let's call it That Stuff Just Happened. Let's call it that. But it's very so I'm up there on the roof and I'm doing it and I'm telling everybody better run. It was Modern Major General from Pirates of Penzance. Is what was in my head when I wrote that. So
that is fascinating.
You did such a good job of making it your own too. Oh man.
So that's a lot of times you have a pre-existing pop song or a musical theater song. Or something like that in your head, or a country song, or whatever it is in your head already.
And
you write to it and then alter it.
And then alter it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a really good idea.
That is a great idea. I mean, do you Do you have training in this or experience, or did you just teach yourself? Over the
No,
years?
this is I went to college many years ago for graphic design.
Mm-hmm.
Back when you had to go to college to be a graphic designer, not just have a PC on your desk.
Wow, that's really amazing though that you've kind of just taught yourself over the years.
Well, you've had so many successes here. What are some things that you would toss out to some fledgling theater companies who want to do something like this in smaller towns or different cities? What advice would you offer to them, just with business and artistically?
Well, I would say don't worry about biting off more than you can chew right off the bat. Don't say I'm going to write this town's next great musical. Don't pick something that's already out there probably to start off with.
What was your first one? I have so many questions at you. I'm so sorry. Slow it down, Jim.
First one here. Well,
that's
a lot of what we started out doing was improv shows, and we're different than other improv houses in town in that a lot of what we do, when we do runs of plays and stuff, we also do runs of improv shows. Mm-hmm. We'll do 4 weeks of an improv show. In fact, we're in a short little 2-week run right now of Hughs Achill, which is improvised musicals based on the work of John Hughes. So it's an improvised musical in a high school where we all draw characters at the beginning, and we're like at the end of Breakfast Club, we're either the brain or the criminal or the princess or the jock or the basket case, And then
Musical
we do that.
improv is so tough.
So, and then we also do a show every January, USS Improvise The Next Generation, the musical.
So it's kind of like Star Trek.
This is improvised episodes of Star Trek:
That's
The Next
amazing,
Generation.
yeah.
We play those characters, but we improvise the story and we make up the songs. Yeah. So we started out doing a lot of improv and not really doing scripted stuff. And then when we started doing scripted stuff, we started adapting. One of our first ones was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We adapted that for the stage and just did that as a stage play. And we did that with Office Space. We did that with American Psycho.
Did you
I mean,
really?
there were some odd choices along the way.
They're nostalgic.
They are.
Right on point.
But then, about a year and a half ago, we did Rocky Horror here. And like I said, Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, which was a lot of fun to do live and stuff like that. So we started doing musical works that were already out there while starting to adapt other stuff.
Right. You guys just wrapped Point Break, right?
Point Break Live. Amazing. Point Break Live was it was created by Jamie Keeling, is her name. She runs that show in New York, and she created it about 15 years ago. And it's the movie Point Break live on stage with audience members audition at the beginning to play Johnny Utah, and they do the whole thing off of cue cards. Which we did a run of that show, and we're going to be spinning it into a once-a-month show.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we're going to be having it once a month, starting up in a couple months.
Our friend Jason England was one of the Johnny Utahs, and he was one of our first podcast guests a couple months ago.
Yeah, but that I knew Point Break Live would do well here in Portland. There are shows I just feel like I'm bringing Evil Dead here this summer,
and
I just feel
really well.
I just feel like there are shows that just fit. Funhouse and Portland in general, and we've built an audience who, when we put stuff out and say here's what we got coming up, people know what kind of work we do here. So I am always hesitant to rent the place out to other companies. Now, in the case of Cabaret coming up. Rusty with Fuse Theater Ensemble, he's one of the very few people I will rent this place to because I know the level of quality he puts out.
Yeah, and he understands the vision.
No doubt. So. Last year he did, what did he do? He did Sorted Lives here and Under the Influence.
Yeah, Under the
He
Influence.
did the updated version of Under the Influence. Which were both great. And if I had no concerns that perhaps this will confuse people about what the brand of the Funhouse is or anything. These were works that I knew I didn't have to worry that they were going to be of a certain quality level or anything like that. So for someone like Rusty, I have no qualms about renting the space to him to do a run. But you have to be careful doing that a lot because people come in, they don't know whether it's a Funhouse show or someone else is just producing a show and renting the Funhouse.
Right.
Nor should an audience member have to concern himself with that.
So what you're saying is you're trying to make sure that any show that comes through your doors adheres to your brand.
To a certain extent.
To a certain extent.
No, it makes absolute sense.
Like with Cabaret, for instance, I wouldn't personally do Cabaret simply because I don't feel a burning need to do Cabaret.
Right.
That's all. That's why I wouldn't do it. But it fits this place.
Absolutely.
And Rusty doing is going to be great. So
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I cannot wait.
So we have a couple more questions for you. We're running out of time.
Okay.
But if you could only take 2 inanimate objects with you on a spaceship, leaving Earth for 200 years.
Okay. All right.
What would those 2 objects be and why?
I'm not sure why. I just have 2 objects that I think would be good to have if you're going into space. I think a Bible and a fleshlight. Those are the 2 things.
A Bible
And a flashlight.
Yeah,
sure. Do you say flashlight or fleshlight?
Whatever you heard is what I said.
Now you've had a lot. You've had so much success come across your stage. Can you tell us about a time that you have either you've bombed or something you've produced? Like, what's a horror story for you to kind of...
I have heard of this happening to people.
I, Andy, have never experienced
myself. I just,
know this.
I don't know that I have a particular story of that. I mean, a lot of my background's improv, so...
Fixing it.
What's nice about improv is...
failing's
like,
okay?
Well, like we say, failing's okay, and when it's not funny, it's art. So, so it's really hard to quote-unquote make a mistake on stage. The mistakes come from being in the moment so much that you say things that were just way over the line because you were trying to be outrageous or trying to do this or that. So even within improv, you have to have certain filters and such.
Right.
But and with a Portland crowd, sometimes you really have to watch what you say. I feel like if you God forbid, like we're on stage and we're prejudiced against kale, you might get a vegan uprising or
That's
something.
So true.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah, people out front with signs that say this is a super food and you are not a super person or some nonsense like that.
Don't worry, this podcast is kale friendly.
Friendly.
Yes.
Yeah.
No kale was hurt in the making of this.
I'm going to point out there is no kale in the room.
There is no kale.
And there is actually a prime rib on the table. I don't even know why.
That is our traveling podcast.
That's our rib.
Yeah. So I'm sure you see a lot of actors come in that audition for your shows.
Yeah.
What is some advice you can give any actors out there? What are some bad audition mistakes?
There's so many things I see in auditions. Some people come in. Okay, if you walk into an audition, and this just happened to me, if you walk into an audition and I ask you about your monologue and you say, I didn't prepare anything because I wasn't sure what a monologue was, you're probably in the wrong business. Or at least you should get online and look up the meaning of certain words if you're going to audition. There are people who come into auditions who aren't even actors, who just kind of think it would be a lark to do some. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of these are people who are just Funhouse fans and stuff like that, and they're like, I really want to be part of this. I want to be in a show, but I mean, at least do some of the work. Yeah. What I would say is with monologues and songs, there might be a monologue you nail, but I had somebody come in and audition for Point Break Live and do the Priest's monologue from Doubt.
That does not fit at all.
And don't get me wrong, I don't recall the gentleman's name, but he was an amazing actor. But I don't know what his audition from Doubt is going to tell me about how he's going to be playing Gary Busey. You know what I mean? So I would suggest having material that would kind of fit the mood of what you're auditioning for. It's the same with a song. And just because you love a song, it doesn't mean you can sing that song well. It's fine for karaoke, but for an audition, you should get with a musician or musical director and practice your song, and let him be critical with you. Let him be painfully honest with you about whether that's a song that fits you or not. Because I see a lot of people pushing themselves to do a song that they saw in a particular musical, or don't do like Mr. Bursar from Hamilton if you're painfully white, because it's not going to work. Good advice.
It is good advice. Yeah,
That is.
Yeah.
And also, I love what you said about finding someone who's going to be painfully honest with you, because in our community, it's hard to find. It's hard to find because you have so many people who love you. And
in Portland, everybody wants to be supportive of everybody else, and everybody. But they're not necessarily doing you a favor. There's being supportive, yes. You don't want to tear somebody down, but you need to understand what your particular gifts are and what they are not, and play to your strengths.
That's great. Well, Andy, that's about all the time we have. Is there anything else you want to say about Funhouse, yourself, or to our listeners?
Any advice that you want to tell us?
He gave advice. Leave him alone.
I've given so much advice.
What do you want from this man?
Milk. Milk of advice.
I think I want to remind everybody to drink enough water.
Yes.
Because it's really important.
Yes.
And get regular checkups. Because we want to keep you around. Yeah. I mean, actually, most of you. There's 2 of you. I wouldn't mind if you, but the rest of you, we want to keep you around. So, the 2 of you,
I will fight you.
You know who you are.
Get out of my bushes, Jen.
Thanks, Andy.
All right.
And that's our show. Thank you so much for listening.
We want to give a big thanks to Andy for being on the show and allowing us to record at the Funhouse Lounge.
As always, please let us know what you think about our show by commenting on our Facebook page, leaving us a positive review on iTunes, and subscribe to our newsletter.
Want to learn more about us, be interviewed on the podcast, or find out about some of our upcoming contests or shows? Then please visit communitytheaterheroes.com.